The ocean does not care how much your boat cost or how long your loan is. When the wind hits 60 knots, a $500,000 yacht is just a floating target. Today, we are looking at the 19-foot bathtub that just survived a Force 10 storm, while 40-foot yachts were snapping in half and sinking to the bottom. Everyone laughed at this tiny boat. They called it a slow toy and a harbor ornament. But while the big modern cruisers were calling for rescue helicopters, this 19-foot freak of engineering was just getting started. There is a hidden secret inside this hull, something the accountant designers in 2026 are actually forbidden from building. It is a 1960s manufacturing mistake that makes this boat literally unsinkable. How did a boat the size of a parking space survive a storm that killed the giants, and is your modern hull secretly designed to fail? 60 knots. That's when the ocean stops pretending. Hulls groan, rigging howls, and every shortcut in the build sheet gets called to account. Out here, no one cares about your Bluetooth speakers or how many staterooms you squeezed in. This is the hour when the ocean writes its invoice, and you pay in fiberglass, carbon, and blood. The first to answer are the big, modern yachts. 40-foot boats, sleek and brochure perfect. But listen, that's the sound of a core delaminating, the bark of a bulkhead tearing loose. A cord hull, half an inch of glass, maybe less, wrapped around foam or balsa, all to save weight for a bigger galley. When the first green wave lands, you get a wrinkle on the cabin top. That's not character, that's a structural warning. The mast steps are flexing, the deck is pumping, and down below the grid that's supposed to hold it all together is starting to let go. A 40-foot boat with a 12:1 length to thickness ratio built to the edge of ISO 12215 is now twisting like a soda can in the jaws of a trash compactor. Rescue beacons start chirping. The countdown begins, 10 minutes, 20, maybe an hour before the next panel buckles or the keel joint pops. The insurance underwriter's favorite number, 0.5 inches of skin over a soft core, turns into a liability when the sea gets teeth. A mast snaps at the partners, carbon shatters with a gunshot crack. The hull takes on a permanent crease by the chain plates. This is not a slow leak. This is catastrophic failure. By the time the helicopter arrives, the big yacht is already a casualty of the accountant's pen and the marketing department's promise of performance. Meanwhile, the ocean doesn't blink. It just keeps tallying up the failed joints, the popped windows, the boats that traded scantlings for square footage. The storm doesn't care about your upgrades. It only cares if you built for the worst day, not the best. And tonight, the worst day has come. No one expects the bathtub to be left bobbing after the storm. Yet there it is, a 19-foot flicker, hull streaked with salt, mast still standing, not a drop below the floorboards. The owner's log reads like a dare to the gods. Force 8, gusting to 10, breakers rolling the size of boxcars. The big boats had their electronics, their carbon rigs, their hulls engineered by spreadsheet. The flicker had a tiller, a dogged little diesel, and hull sides you could measure with a tape, not a micrometer. The owner's voice, still hoarse days later, cuts through the static. He said, "She rode like a cork. Not fast, not pretty, and I never felt her panic. There is no bravado, just the flat truth of someone who has seen the inside of a squall and come out dry." He scribbled a line in the margins. The others tried to punch through. I just let her rise. That is the difference between a cork and a tree. The big yachts are built tall, proud, engineered to slice and flex until the ocean finds their grain. The flicker, with her 1.5-inch solid glass hull, is a stubby, overbuilt relic. Her scantlings are so thick you could hang an anchor from the cabin sole. Modern designers call it wasteful. Survivors call it insurance. The ocean does not grade on comfort. It grades on who is left floating when the wind stops screaming. While the 40-footers were splitting at the seams, core delaminating, chain plates working loose, the sound of glue giving way, the flicker's hull just shrugged. No fancy grid, no sandwich to soak up water, Just old-fashioned fiberglass, laid up by hand, thicker than most modern hulls by a factor of 3. This is not nostalgia, it is a forensic audit. The storm did not care about floor space or headroom. It cared about scantlings, about how much glass you could stack before the accountants cried foul. In the logbook, underlined twice, the owner wrote the line, "The sea does not read the brochure." The truth starts with the numbers, no guesswork, no brochure poetry. Out comes the surveyor's caliper, jaws cold and merciless, clicking down the hull from tow rail to bilge. What it finds is not marketing copy. It is 38mm, 1.5 inches of solid hand-laid fiberglass, stem to stern. Not a sandwich, not a foam core, not a drop of balsa. Just honest-to-God glass, stacked until your arm aches, the way they did it before accountants learned to spell optimization. The margin of error is plus or minus 1mm. That is less than the thickness of a credit card. Scantlings, that is the word the old hands use. It means the bones of the boat, the thickness of every panel, the heft of every frame, the dimension of every stringer and bulkhead. Scantlings are not just numbers on a cut sheet. They are the difference between a hull that shrugs off a breaker and one that folds when the sea gets mean. The Flicker's scantlings are a throwback to when builders measured twice and laid up 3 times, just to be sure. On paper, a 40-foot production yacht looks untouchable. But run the caliper down her hull and you get a different story. 16mm here, 12 there, sometimes less. Peel back the gel coat and you find foam or end-grain balsa sandwiched between 2 thin skins. The core saves weight and boosts stiffness per kilogram, and it lets the builder brag about performance. But it is a gamble. When the glue fails, when water sneaks in, when the sea starts slamming, you are left with skins barely thicker than a coin, fighting to hold shape. That is where the glue crisis starts, not in the storm, but in the layup bay, when the bean counters sign off on the minimums. The surveyor's tools do not care about trends. They care about reality. The Flicker's hull comes in at 3 times the thickness of the big boats. No core to delaminate, no voids to hide. You want to know why the little boat is still floating? Measure her. The answer is in the scantlings. Thick, stubborn, overbuilt. The ocean cannot read a sail's pitch, but it can read a hull's cross-section. And tonight, the numbers do not lie. Bring the hull sample to the bench. No marketing, no brochure gloss, just resin and glass and the cold facts of physics. The lab lights flicker on. In the microscope, the cross-section of a 1978 Flicker hull looks like a geological core, layer upon layer of hand-laid mat and woven roving, each one thick enough to catch a thumbnail. The technician's caliper bites into the edge, 38mm, solid all the way through. No foam, no balsa, no voids. The fiber bundles are rough, almost primitive, but there is no mistaking the density. This is what old-timers called insurance you can measure. Now slide over to the panel from the 40-foot boat, core-ed and light. The caliper clicks, 12mm, including the thin glass skins and the soft foam core between. Under the scope, the outer layers are fine, almost delicate. The core is a pale, spongy strip, good for saving weight, but a liability when the sea starts swinging hammers. This is where the glue crisis is born, the bond between skin and core one bad day away from separation. The technician sets up the stiffness test. 2 samples, same length and width. The Flicker's slab weighs twice as much, but that is not the point. The dial gauge measures deflection under load. 5 kilograms on each sample. The modern panel bows, flexing 5 times more than the old solid glass. The numbers flash, a 5 times difference in panel stiffness. The technician does not need to explain. You can see it, the cored hull moves like a diving board. The Flicker's barely blinks. That's the T-cubed law at work. Triple the thickness, and you get 27 times the stiffness. In a storm, That is the difference between a hull that shrugs off a green sea and one that starts to ripple, crack, and fail. Microscopy reveals the rest. The old hull's fibers run haphazard but tight, resin-rich, with the odd air bubble but no gaps big enough to swallow a credit card. The cord panel shows pristine outer skins, but the bond line is a gamble. One water trail, one bad batch of glue, and the whole sandwich can unzip under load. Forensic surveys after storms find delum voids, core shear cracks, and skins so thin you can flex them with a thumb. The Flicker's hull just keeps its shape, no matter how many times the sea tries to fold it. That's why thickness wins. Not because it is romantic, but because the laws of physics do not care about interior volume or racing trophies. The ocean asks one question: how much glass did you stack between you and the abyss? The Flicker's answer is measured in inches, not marketing spin. The microscope, the caliper, and the dial gauge all agree: when the invoice comes due, thickness pays in survival. Run your hand along the inside of a modern 40-foot boat and you will find the promise of engineering: foam core, thin glass, a structural grid glued in place. On paper, it is a marvel: half-inch skins, 20mm foam, all tied together by a matrix of tabbed bulkheads and a grid meant to distribute the load. But the numbers do not lie. That so-called half-inch is usually a quarter-inch of glass on either side of a soft, spongy core. ISO 12215 says that is enough for Category A. The insurance adjuster nods, the salesman beams, but the ocean does not sign off. Stress does not care about panel geometry or the cutaway in the brochure. It finds the thinnest spot, the weakest glue line, the path where grid meets hull, and the tabbing gets starved for resin. When the sea hammers a panel, the load jumps from the skin to the core, then to the grid, then back to the skin. Each handoff is a chance for failure, delamination, shear, a crack that starts as a whisper and ends as a tear. Surveyors call it the load path lottery. You never know which joint will cash out first. That is the price of chasing weight savings. A 19-foot Flicker with 1.5 inches of solid glass does not play this game. No core, no grid, no guessing. The hull is the structure. Every inch from waterline to bilge is one uninterrupted mass of resin and glass, built to absorb punishment, not distribute it. The stress map is simple. The sea hits, the hull shrugs. No relay race, no glue crisis, no hidden voids. Just thickness, measured in decades of survival. Modern builders call it overkill. Survivors call it peace of mind. Because when the skin is too thin, the ocean keeps the receipt and the tally is not kind. Take a walk through the wreckage after a Force 10 and you will see the real cost of building to the edge. The smiley crack, the 2024 poster child for modern yacht failure, runs like a scar across the hull of a 40-foot boat, splitting the gel coat in a grin that means you are done. Not a freak accident, not sabotage, just a spreadsheet's idea of what enough looks like. Delamination blooms at the keel joint, right where the accountant shaved the tabbing to hit a price point. Survey photos from the last round of insurance write-offs all show the same story: foam core weeping brown water, bulkheads adrift, stringers peeled loose like the skin on a cheap drum. How did we get here? Follow the money. The market rewards square footage, not survival. Modern builders chase the next big thing: lighter, faster, cheaper, while the real deal sailors get left holding the bill. The accountant designer's hand is everywhere. ISO 12215 minimums, grid systems glued with just enough resin to pass the tap test, panel thickness trimmed to the decimal. Every shortcut is an incentive, every cost saving a future failure. The Flicker's 1.5-inch solid glass is a relic, a monument to overkill in a world that calls it waste. But when the wind hits 60 and the sea starts to rip, the only thing that matters is what is between you and the water. Not a promise, not a warranty, just scantlings you can trust. The rest is just a bet against the storm, and tonight, the house always wins. Grab a flashlight and a hammer. Forget the brochure. This is the only audit that matters. Start at the hull, inside and out. Tap along every panel with the ball of your fist or a small mallet. Listen close. A sharp, crisp rap means solid glass. A dull thud means that is the sound of a core that is either wet, voided, or starting to let go. On a flicker, you will get the same tone from bow to transom: thick, honest, unyielding. On a modern 40-foot boat, the note changes every few feet, like you are walking across a hollow stage. Mark any spot that sounds soft or dead. That is where the ocean will press its claim. Run your hand along the chain plates, the keel joint, every bulkhead tab. Look for hairline cracks, weeping stains, or gel coat smiles. These are not cosmetic, they are the first warning. Push on the sole and cabin sides. If they flex, you are living on borrowed time. Check the tabbing where the grid meets the hull. If you can peel it with a knife, it has already failed the test. You do not need a surveyor to find the truth. The ocean does not wait for an appointment. Know your scantlings, trust your ears, and never ignore a hollow sound. The invoice comes due at 60 knots, not at the dock. If you want to survive, start tapping now. It's time to stop trusting the sales floor and start demanding receipts. If you want to know what your hull is made of, don't take the builder's word. Demand the specs. Ask for the layup schedule, the fiber volume fraction, the core thickness, the ultrasound scan. If your surveyor does not carry a moisture meter and an ultrasonic thickness gauge, find one who does. Insurance companies are already waking up. Some now require hull scans for anything over 10 years old, and if they find more than 15% moisture in the core, your policy gets flagged or cancelled. That's not paranoia, that's the new baseline. The tools are out there. For a few $100s, you can rent an ultrasound meter and walk your own hull, panel by panel. You will know in minutes if you are sitting on solid glass or a sponge. If you are buying used, do not settle for a glossy brochure or a broker's handshake. Demand the raw numbers. If the builder will not give you the scantlings, walk away. The ocean does not care about your resale value, only about what is between you and the water. This isn't just about one little boat or a single storm. It's about holding the entire industry to account. The next invoice is coming, and this time you get to audit the books before the ocean does. Today's yacht market sells comfort and speed, but the ocean audits hulls, not lifestyles. Scantlings are not just numbers, they are a verdict. A 19-foot boat with 1.5-inch solid glass laughs at loads that make a half-inch chord 40-foot boat scream. The glue crisis is real, and the ocean's invoice always comes due. Build for brochures, sink by surprise. Out here, thickness is truth. Drop your thoughts below if you can handle the forensic numbers.